Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. I have an old picket fence panel and it has some good age on it, so it has a good look, and so that's what inspired my projects today. And I generally don't film outside because we're such a mess out there, but I want to use a few of these pickets from the fence panel and make some items. Now this one I've already cut a section off of it, and then I took a piece of that I cut off and wood glued it to the bottom, and now I'm adding some brad nails to it. And that's going to be part of one of my projects. And then another one I'm going to make a tote from, and then another one will be a small shelf. So you don't have to have the old fence panels in order to do this. You can actually use a newer fence panel, and you could cut some sort of a shape on the top if that's what you want. Otherwise, it doesn't even have to be shaped like this. But I'm just measuring to make sure that my side pieces are the same height, and it looks like they're both about 22 inches. And you can go shorter on these. I just wanted this one to be a larger tote. But I have both of these cut, and then I cut a piece to go across the bottom. And that one is almost 20 inches. I just guesstimated these. I'm just showing you guys what size I used. But I put this together with some wood glue and then also some brad nails. So I want the boards to be on the outside instead of the bottom board being underneath that, if that makes sense, because when you're looking from the side, I want to just see those side boards. So I'm using tight bond glue and gluing this together, and then I'll use the brad nailer and put a few brad nails in each side. Now I didn't mention that although I love the look of these, I did take my orbital sander and I went over them really good with the sander to make sure that anything that was loose came off and to make it smoother. So once I get both of these sides secured, again, I used wood glue and a brad nailer, and as you can see, I shot one of my brads out the bottom, and so I'm going to have to go back and take that out and do that over. So this brad nailer in particular, a lot of it is the operator here, but my husband also has problems with this brad nailer wanting to shoot crooked. So now I've cut two boards, the length of the bottom plus the thickness of two of these boards, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to just nail those to each side. And then I cut an old bed spindle to make the handle, and I wasn't in frame and didn't realize it here, but I just cut it the length of the space between the two side boards, if that makes sense, and glued and brad nailed that to the top. You can kind of see where that's at there, but I got out of frame badly. So I'm just measuring here to make sure that I get that centered. And then I used both wood glue and brad nails there. And then that's all that I did to finish this box. And now the next item that I'm going to do is another little panel that I've cut a short piece from. and then use part of what I cut off of it to create a little shelf on the bottom. And now I'm ready to start decorating or dressing up my items. Now, I had these stencils that I've had for quite a while, and they just happened to fit exactly on these sides. So I had two separate ones, and I stenciled one on one side and then one on the other. And I'm just using Stays On ink here and just a little makeup brush to stencil that on, because I just really like the look of stenciling with ink. It just seems like you get a neater finish. And I thought about adding some transfers to this, but I just like the simple look of just putting these stencils on. And I'm going to make this a little gardening tote, or I'm going to stage it as a little gardening tote, so this will be perfect. And I know that the inside of that, you can see where one board overlapped and then it was painted. I actually like that. I didn't like it so much that I wanted it on the outside, but I like the look of it on the inside because I want it to be very obvious here that this is a repurposed old fencing board. And so I just really like the look of that inside where you can tell the fence has been taken apart and used. And I didn't do full coverage on these stencils because I want it to have a worn look. So that's why I'm not, it looks like it needs another coat on it, but it looks much better to me if it's lighter and looks like it's worn. And then I finished this off with a polyurethane. I just put 2 coats of a matte finish polyurethane and just kind of sealed in all of this aging. And as you can see, I used a spindle here that had 2 flat ends because that made it much easier to attach, and it'll be a lot more solid that way. And now on my next item, I want to add a clay mold to this one. So I just pulled out one of my Redesign with Prima molds. And I think this one's called Birdsong. And I'm just gonna make one of these little birds and attach it to the top of one of the fencing boards. And I just attach that with the Tite Bond Thick and Quick, and I just find that for me, that works better than any of the glues that I've tried to hold these molds in place. And I just glue them on while they're still wet, because if you wait until they dry, you're more likely to get cracking. Also, I go ahead and paint them while they're still wet, because again, that helps lessen the chances of it cracking. So this just gets glued on, and then I just used the color Fluff and put 1 coat on it, and I just tried to stay off the wood around it the best that I could, and I just took a damp cloth, actually I think I used a baby wipe, and just wiped around anything that I got on the actual fencing board. And then I let that dry well, and then went over this mold with some brown glaze so that it would bring out some of the detail. So I've already painted the mold here, and now I'm just going over the whole thing with some polyurethane. Since I'm going to be using the brown glaze over the top of that mold, I wanted to clear coat it as well so that it didn't grab too much, and I was able to wipe what I didn't want on, because really all that I want to do here is just bring out that detail. I want the bird to stay the color that it is, really. So again, I just clear coated that first so that it would wipe off better. And now I've taken this spoon, and this is just one that I got from the Dollar Tree, I think. And it was just metal, and I spray painted it black so that I would have a good color to come through because I'm going to be using a crackle medium on this. So I'm putting some of the crackle medium from Dixie Belle. Now you could just use regular school glue here if you wanted. And I'm going over the whole thing with this. And then once it's dry, then I'm going to put one generous coat of the color buttercream on it. And then it will start to crack. I couldn't really make this. I thought about making this little ladle look like it was old, but because of the way it's made, it's kind of impossible to do that. So I thought it was best just to go ahead and paint it, and it needed to have a little bit more character, so that's why I decided to do a crackle finish on it. Now, anytime you're doing a crackle finish, when you're doing that top coat, you need to put plenty on your brush and just kind of lightly drag it across it. You don't want to have to overstroke any more than you have to. You're only going to be able to do one coat on this because if you do a second coat, then you'll lose your crackle. So you need to put plenty on your brush and just kind of brush it on there very light-handed so that you don't have too many streaks because you want all that crackle, but if you get too many streaks, it's just not as attractive as it could have been. So just be careful with this top coat. And as you can see, you get plenty of cracks with this crackle medium. Now I'm trying to decide where I want this spoon to be because this is going to be a little feeder. And I'm just screwing one of those little, I call them C-hooks. I really don't know what they are. But I'm just screwing one into the top there, and I'll just hang that little ladle on that hook, and then it will be removable if you want to remove it, but it will stay well also because you've got that little loop there at the top. And what I didn't get to film is that I used some of the transfers that I get at the Dollar Tree and added some transfers to this. And honestly, I ended up regretting doing any transfers on it anyway because I prefer this simple look to those transfers. And I can always go back over it with some sandpaper and sand those transfers off. And that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. So what I did to the last item is on the little shorter board that I put the little shelf on, I just put some resin molds on it, and I used some of the rose molds that I ordered recently from Amazon that I just absolutely love. They have so much detail, and I'll link those in the description along with the birdsong mold. And so I just made some of those and glued those on, and then painted them. And as you can see, those got some brown glaze as well. I had to use a small paintbrush and just really work it back down inside all that detail since it's so deep. But I think it turned out really pretty on those roses. And I wouldn't imagine that you could use clay in those molds. It would just about have to be the resin. And now I'm making a hang tag to put on the tote. And I started out with some cardstock, and I used some of this in another video, and this is a little image, and this is an image that I printed off one of the free images from the graphics fairy, and I've antiqued around the edges of that and then glued it in place. This is not going to take much to make this hang tag. So I just cut a piece of lace and glued that on the bottom. And then I glued a piece also to the top, and I just kind of used, this is from the Dollar Tree because I needed a narrow piece at the top. And then I used another narrow piece of lace to trim out the top of the bottom piece. And then to add some of that color to the top, I'll use that same lace as my string to string the tag with. And then because the back of the cardstock was just white, I had antiqued around those edges already, and now I'm just going to take a stamp of a rose and just stamp it on the back. But I forgot that I added a couple of little shabby roses, and I just kind of made those onto the card. And if I'm not going to show this in detail, but if you haven't seen how to make these little shabby roses, they're very, very simple, and I have several videos on them. I will attach one of the videos in the description. Again, I don't have any viewer hang tags to show today. This will be the only one that I'll be showing. So here I'm just antiquing around these edges, and then I'll stamp that little rose stamp on it, and then this tag will be finished. And I think, although I made this one for the tote with the flowers go with that, but it's also a good shabby chic look. And again, it didn't take much to do this one. I still have my other video that I talked about earlier that I'm going to be doing with my granddaughter. She still hasn't had a chance to come and help me, but that's coming up soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.